In today's video, I'm going to finish the rest of the Lesson 6 notes. In Part 1, we talked about state, use state, and how all of those features work together. A great example of state and use state is the text input component. So in this example code that I have here, which is what we'll be using as our starter code, you can see that my component has two state variables, one for the name, one for the age, and they start out with default values of nothing. And then inside here, when I insert a text field example component into my index.tsx, this is the code that will be rendered. So let's look at what's going on here. So for starters, I have a container, and the text input container is what is holding these two text inputs right here. And then inside of there, each of these text inputs has some different styles on them. So I have some styles, just how I want my text to look. And then I have some other props or attributes along with my text input. The text input has a lot of props that we can use. So I'm going to start out by explaining some of the basic ones, and then we'll take a look at some of the other cool ones that you might want to use. For starters, placeholder, that's the text that you would see there when the component first loads. We have the color of the text for the placeholder, so you might want the placeholder text to be a more muted color. That's your personal preference. Then we have these two props right here, value and on-change text. So value is basically saying what value do I want displayed in this text input. And you'll notice that name and age are my two state variables. And so I'm saying that I want the value of the text input to be equal to whatever name is. So if name has a preset variable value, then that's what I will see. And then this here in the on-change text, that is basically saying whenever the text changes, so as somebody is typing in this box, I want to call the setName method. Now, the way that we look at this when we read this is the part that is in parentheses right here. That is the parameter that is being sent to the setName function. So I could really put anything here. I could just have the letter N. I could have the word name. I can have whatever I want. A lot of resources I've seen have used new value just as a way to let you know that this is the generic input, whatever the user had put there, that is being sent to the setName function. And we know that setName is being used to update the state value. Now, one of the things we learned about in part 1 of the video is that whenever a state variable value changes, the component that is displaying its value re-renders. So since text input is displaying the value of name, when name is updated, the text that we see in text input is also updated. And so what we'll see in a minute is that as I type in this box, the value is being changed, the set name and set age is being updated, and then this text string that I see down here is also going to be changed because that text string, which we see right here, is dependent upon the values of name and age. Now you'll notice the syntax here. Normally all of the text that you see in between the two open and closed text tags is going to be displayed as literal text on the screen. But when I use curly braces, that is the way of telling me, hey, this is actually a variable value. So I want you to go get that variable value and insert it here and then mix it in with the rest of this literal text. All right, so to get us started, what you want to do is in your project, and you can really do this in any other project that you have open, you want to make a new file in your components folder. So you can click on components, click on the new file, and just for consistency, I'm going to call this file text field example. Now, if you recall, I'm just going to cut this for a moment. The shortcut to help us generate that boilerplate code is RNFES, and that's going to go ahead and get your starting code for what this text field example will look like. Now, to speed things up a little bit, I made on my notes that I linked in the comments, this is actually editable. So if you click on this, you can go ahead here and just select all of that. And then we'll come back over here because let's be honest, you all know how to type. We don't need to sit here and watch each other type. Now, you will notice that we see a little bit of a problem here, and that is because in the code that I originally had, I used styles, and I didn't give you the styles because I thought you might want to style them yourself, okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get a style sheet or a style object down here, and so you can start off by saying const styles equals, and then capital S for style sheet. dot create, and then open parentheses, open curly brace, enter. And then this here is where we will put our different styles that we are making. And the two that I used in here were for text input container and text input. So those are the two that we need at a minimum. So text input container and text input. All right, so I'm going to pause the video for a minute and fill in some styles. You go ahead and do the same, and we can kind of see where we go from there. Yeah, so check back in just a sec. All right, so I went ahead and I filled in some of these styles. I wanted to give a width and a height for my text input box, some margins, some borders. I went with the color slate blue for the border color, and the color attribute determines the text color that we'll see in the actual text box. But right now you'll notice I don't see anything on the screen, and that is because I haven't added a text field example component to my index.tsx. Right now, all I have on here is just some, basic text saying my text field component. So let's go ahead and let's add that. So I'm going to add this after my title, and as I start typing text field, you'll notice that I can see different values that I have. And so this is a different example I was working on. So this one right here, that's the one that I want. And if I click enter, you'll notice that it has auto imported for me. Now, I'm using my self-closing syntax because I don't have anything that I'm passing in right now. If we look at this component doesn't take props, and also I have nothing that's going to go inside of it, so I can use the self-closing syntax and keep it nice and clean and simple. When I save, I'm going to see nothing. All right, let's go ahead and let's force a reload because that should have shown something on my screen. My emulator has been kind of buggy. All right, I'm going to pause this for a minute and figure out what's going on with my emulator. All right, so I restarted my emulator, and now we can see that I have my text field component right here on the screen. So you'll notice that just adding this one chunk of code renders all of this right here. And that's the beauty of making our own components. So right now, I'm just going to slide this over a little bit since I don't really need to focus on this code, and we'll focus on the text field example code. So again, I declared two variables, one for name, one for age, and each of these text inputs are having the value of name and age as what's being displayed. And currently, since those values are nothing, all I am seeing is my placeholder text, which is name and age. And then I have different colors here for the placeholder text. If I were to make this, for example, red, I would now see that my placeholder text has changed. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type. And as I'm typing, I want you to notice that down here, it's displaying what I'm typing. And you could choose to have it be something where like you have to push a button before it changes. But in this case, because I went with the prop on change text, as I am typing, it's literally calling set name, which is changing the name value, which is causing this text field to re-render. Now, you'll notice down here in my style for the text input, since color is slate blue, that's my text color. If I were to change this, for example, to red, now that's going to make the box text red. And I can officially say 45 since my birthday is just coming up, so I'm not quite 46 yet. And so yeah, there we go. As I type in here, I can see those different things change. And then when all of the text is gone, we now see that placeholder text come back. All right, so those are a couple of things that are cool about this. However, there are so many different props that we can play around with, and I just want to show you how some of those work. For starters, when I go to type in my age, I don't know about you, but letters don't really work for an age. And so one of the things that we can do for this text input is we can limit the keyboard to be only numeric. And for that, we would say keyboard type. And then there's different options that we can use. One trick that I like doing is if I just type a quote, I see all of the options that pop up. And this is really nice, especially when you're not sure what options there are. It helps you see what's out there, right? Without having to look at the documentation. So I'm just going to go with numeric. And now when I save this, we'll see that I only have the option to enter numbers for my age. Now, another one that I like is the auto capitalize. And this is nice in the case, for example, of my name. If I was typing in my full name, I would want the first letter of each name to be capitalized. So for that option, again, this is auto capitalize. And if you type a single quote, we can see what's going on here. So this would be every character, only sentences, no auto capitalization, or words is going to capitalize the first letter of each word. Now, here's what's tricky about this, and you'll notice this when you're on an emulator. So right now, if I type with this on-screen keyboard and type my first letter, then as I continue typing, it's going ahead and doing, the lowercase. And then when I hit a space, now it's going to go back to the capital D. However, if I were to be typing on my computer and I just kept typing, the auto capitalization doesn't work because it's going to take the keyboard setting, not this keyboard setting. So just keep that in mind if you are testing with a computer emulator and you're like, why is this not working? It's because you literally have to use this keyboard to make it work. All right, so if we were to go ahead and take a look at the documentation, it's always good to understand how to read documentation. And again, I have that linked here. You can also just search up React Native text input. You will see there are so many different props that we can use. Now, just a quick reminder about the props. As you look over here on the left, you can auto jump to any one of these. Also notice these colored dots on the side. Recall that those colored dots let you know when a property is only supported on Android or iOS. So for example, cursor color is only supported on Android. This clear button mode is only supported on iOS. If it doesn't give you a limitation, then that means it's supported across all platforms. All right, well, I hope this was helpful for a great introduction into not only how to use our custom components and combine that with our state variables, but also how to use our text input field. Thank you. Have a nice day.